Hey, folks, welcome back to another Manana No Mas podcast. As normal viewers and listeners know, we don't actually keep a release schedule here at Manana No Mas. We only release episodes when we run into people that are just amazing and need to be shared with you. And this week, we've been really, really fortunate. We've had two guests, and now we're going to talk to Deb Krier. You might notice a theme this week. Our guest earlier, Diana, if you want to look at the previous episode, you can. She was a cancer thriver. She calls herself a cancer thriver. She's a CEO and all these other things. Deb has a similar message in that she is also a cancer survivor. And since I have signed up for my 8th year of the Great Cycle Challenge and said that I would ride 400 miles in September and raise money for kids with brain cancer, this all fits this week with the announcements of all those things. So that said, Deb, do our listeners and viewers a favor. Give us a kind of a quick introduction about yourself and what you do, and then we can kind of dive into a conversation.
Oh, cool. Well, Kurt, thank you so much for having me on the program. We're going to have so much fun chatting. I'm a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. I started my company, Wise Women Communications, over 20 years ago. Oh my gosh, right? And it's a full service marketing agency. Been having a lot of fun with that through the years. Then 10 years ago, almost to this month, right? Was thrown the loop. I went in for my regular, checkup because I'm a good kid and I go annually like you're supposed to. And I hadn't even gotten home from having a mammogram and they called and said, you need to come back. Now, I used to work for the American Cancer Society and I worked for an oncologist. And so I knew I did not smile pretty. And so I went back and what they discovered were microcalcifications. I had no clue. So I did what I tell people don't do. I turned to Dr. Google, right? And discovered that almost all women of a certain age have those. It just happens as the hormones change in your body. And the vast majority of the time, everything is okay. Well, I'm special. And I like being special usually, but and so my little speckledy spots had started to clump together. And that was what the problem was. But they said, hey, stage 0, you don't have to worry too much about this. And so I didn't even get an oncologist. I did get a surgeon and we did a couple biopsies that came back negative. And then she said, hey, let's pull some lymph nodes. Let's just make sure. And nobody was as surprised as she was when 8 of 12 lymph nodes came back positive, which meant the cancer had already spread. And so I went from stage 0 to stage 3, just kerplunk, got the oncologist. And she said, we're going to throw the book at this. You've got these little speckles throughout your body. Let's do this. And so I had large dose. I had 8 different drugs, and was fine for a couple of days and then not fine. And then my world crashed. I developed a complication because remember I said I'm special, that happens less than 1% of the time. And the only reason I survived was my oncologist had someone who died from it. I went into septic shock and spent 7 weeks in the hospital, in and out of ICU, in and out of lots of different surgeries and all sorts of things. And then things were on the upswing. I had a double mastectomy, got a complication from that my surgeon had never seen. See, there is a pattern here. And then I sailed, right? I had no problems with radiation, which they were really surprised at because I am this redheaded, freckly kid that when I go to the mailbox, I get a sunburn. And you just kept going merrily along. A couple years after that, I happened to tell a doctor, hey, I've got a thing on my arm that won't heal. Off I go to the dermatologist, and I had basal cell carcinoma, which sounds horrible and awful, but it's your simple garden variety skin cancer. I didn't even have a stitch. He just, and that was that. And I am, like I said, the redheaded, freckly kid who never knew what sunscreen was, and I still don't. And then 2 years ago, I had a test for something else, and they said, well, you don't have that, but oh, by the way, and I ended up with thyroid cancer. So I'm on my 3rd diagnosis in 10 years. All 3 totally different cancers, but you just kind of roll with the punches, maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely a frustration. I don't know if this was disclosed to you before the interview or not, Deb, but I had cancer when I was 16, and I had a thyroid cancer, and I had a type of thyroid cancer that kids weren't supposed to be able to get.
Oh,
And
see, you're special.
and
That's why
so,
we're getting along.
but I'm also a kind of person that does research, and this was
Okay.
before internet Google stuff. I'm older than I look, maybe, right? So my mom was a nurse. I had access to some books, and I went to the library and did some research.
Mhm.
And then went to the doctor, and my mother worked at the hospital, and it was one of those educational hospitals. There was a lot of people there that didn't have, weren't long in the tooth. And I said, "Oh, I think we should test for this, this, and this." And with all the confidence in the world, Deb, they looked at me and said, "That would be impossible. No one your age has ever had that. Your name would be in the medical books. Like,
Yes.
not even a concern." And I was like, "I'm thinking it might be a concern." And they were like, "No, no, no." And dismissed me because I was young.
Mhm.
And sure enough, by the time they opened me up on the table for this
Mhm.
incision that was supposed to be this big, um, they sent a sample to pathology. Pathology said,
Mhm.
"No, it's malignant." And they
Right.
said, "No, we don't believe it." And they sent it back.
Right. Some again.
When I woke up and the girl I had a crush on was in the room that when she
Mhm.
didn't know I had a crush on her, right? So I was like, "What's she doing here?" Then I
Mhm.
fell asleep. 'Cause you know how it is, you're groggy. And then I woke up and all my friends were in the room.
Oh,
And then I
dear.
fell back asleep. And I woke up and there was a priest in the room. And I was like, "Oh,
It's going downhill.
something, something ain't right. Something's not adding up." And then when I finally got up and was awake, I said,
Mhm.
"Oh man, my throat is killing me. Imagine if they would have cut my whole throat open."
Mhm.
And I waddled into the restroom, pushing
Mhm.
the little thing on wheels, and there was a mirror in there, and I
Mhm.
lifted this towel with forceps on it, and it was like looking at railroad tracks all the way across my neck. And
Wow.
and I just thought to my again, no one talked to me yet, and I thought, "Okay,
Oops.
something something happened." And then I went back to bed, and that
Mhm.
was it. My fight with cancer was super, super quick. Like, that
Mhm.
sounds horrible, but then that was it. They
Mhm.
over-medicated me for a year and a half, turned me into a lunatic on medications,
Mhm.
and I realized I shouldn't say realized, my personal interpretation was they really are just practicing. They don't have a
Mhm.
clue what they're
Mhm.
doing, and
Right.
I don't wanna be the guinea pig
Mhm.
anymore, and I
Mhm.
just stopped going to doctors and dentists
Mhm.
and everything for decades.
Mhm.
Um when you were telling your story, I got this inkling that maybe you had a similar thought that was like,
Mhm.
maybe you were like,
Right.
"How is it possible
Mhm.
that this is the first time anybody
Mhm.
has seen this, or this is
Yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah.
weird."
Well, and it really is. It's such a weird thing. And the thing is, it's different for every single body, right?
Yeah,
They've got their list of, hey, we do this and this and this. Some of those drugs work, some of those drugs don't work. Some of them are catastrophic. All of those things. And the thing that I tell people now is that the absolute most important thing during this journey, and anything that you're doing like this, you have to advocate for yourself. And if that's to say, I don't want that anymore, then that's it, I know several people who chose not to have treatment, and they're still here, right?
yeah,
Other people who had catastrophic complications like I did and aren't still here. And so that's the thing is it is different for every single person. And I chose the traditional approach. I mean, I was going to do chemo, surgery, radiation, and that is what I did, except, the chemo bat did me in. And we tried it again, and I had the exact same reaction. I just recognized it faster, and so it wasn't as catastrophic. But yeah, and the thing is, we know our bodies. And so when we know something is not right and they don't pay attention to us, get somebody else. I fired several doctors along the way. Several, they one literally saved my life. I mean, he was my first surgeon. He was the one that did all the major abdominal surgeries and all of that. And the bedside charm of a gnat. You know, and I just didn't like him. I mean, that was what it came down to. And then, I got a new surgeon who I would walk on fire for. He just and he's done at least 6 major surgeries on me. You kind of stop counting after a certain point. But yeah, I've changed doctors several times and told them off. I had one doctor, because long story short, I got gallstones and needed my gallbladder out. So they sent me to a GI. Now I had the scans. We knew there were gallstones there. And who knows if I would have gotten those anyway. I mean, people have their gallbladder taken out. And he lectured me. He told me I was to not speak, which you could guess that went over real well with me, right? Um, and and he, and he did tell me what you would tell 99% of the people. Hey, let's see if we can change this with diet. Let's just monitor it. All of those things. Well, I knew I had gallstones the size of peas. I mean, this was not going away, but he hadn't even looked at my chart. So he didn't know that I'd had scans. And so, I lectured him about that. I left there. I called my surgeon. I went in, saw him, and he said, "What you doing next week?" I said, "Getting my gallbladder out." He said, "Yeah." And so I went back to that original doctor in a month because I was supposed to go in, let's have a monthly check. And he was just so pleased that I was doing so well because I let him get through his whole big, "You're doing well." And I said, "You did not read my chart again." And I said, "I don't even have my gallbladder anymore." And I got up and I walked out. I mean, it was, or if you call me by my diagnosis, I get real bent out of shape. But yeah, we are advocates. And of course, sometimes we can't be, but so that means we need somebody else that knows what our wishes are.
Well, I think that set the stage really well going through that and having that chat because somehow you've been able to overcome that. So I have a saying, it's my saying, you're welcome to steal it, but we need to find the opportunities within the obstacles. And I've been chanting that since COVID. I went live every day in COVID with that message. I think it's fair to say that there's been an obstacle, right? But you've managed to come out of this on the other side with lots of opportunity. So
definitely.
So talk to our listeners and viewers a little bit about that, finding those opportunities within the obstacles and what that looks like now that you're over the hump.
Right. Well, I'm actually still in active treatment. I went in last week and got jabbed with needles. And I go in every 21 days because my technical diagnosis, because they did even make it worse, is stage 4 triple positive metastatic breast cancer, which they don't consider stage 4 curable. Now it could go away and never come back. But they don't say, "Oh, hey, you're cured, go away." But yeah, I've not had in 10 years, nothing has shown up again. And so, knock on wood. But I learned several things. The first is life is short, right? Because I did almost die 3 times. There were 3 times where they told my husband, "Yeesh." And so, there is that. There's, don't put stuff off. All of those. But then I also have a business coach who I love her dearly. She knows my whole saga. And she said, "You know what? You didn't go through all of this without using it to help others." And I went, "Oh, no, I don't want to be cancer girl. No."
Yeah.
And she kept saying, "Yes." I said, "No." And finally she got me to agree. And because I knew, right? And I was helping people anyway. And so I thought, well, let's kind of, maybe we should formalize this. And so I started an initiative called Trying Not to Die.live. And the concept is when we're sick with whatever, or sometimes even just life, right? We get so caught up in trying to not die that we forget that what we really need to be doing is living.
Yeah.
And, and so it's basically just, a support resource for anyone who's on a cancer journey, whether they have cancer or they know someone with cancer. A lot of times they get calls and they say, "My sister, my wife, my coworker, my friend was diagnosed and I don't know what to do." And so I work with those. And then, my business coach kept pushing. And so now I am an integrative cancer coach, and I work with CEOs and senior executives who have cancer and are told, "Hey, Kurt, you've got cancer," and you go, "Well, no, I have a business I have to run." And so what I work with them on is to have a strong business, right? Not the, as you know, some people say the kumbaya and all that. I mean, it's in there. I am certified mindfulness and all of those, a certified grief coach, but I'm also a certified happiness coach because you've got to laugh through all of this. And so, yeah, I mean, but I'm still just doing my business and having fun and all sorts of those other things too. But it is with the thought of it could end tomorrow.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when you say, oh, you got cancer, but oh, I got this business to run. Um, it's amazing to me how many people tie their identity to those things. Like
Right.
I was on another podcast that's in the WordPress field, making websites, and we were having a discussion about how both of us running our own agencies, it's me and this other co-host, we were like, we used to say yes to all these contracts and tasks that we knew were bad fit. Like we were like, I shouldn't even be doing this job. But then you're like, we need the money. Or you take a $3,000 deposit, you start doing the work, and then you're like, this is a bad fit. This isn't going to work. This isn't going to, like, like in your mind, you're like,
yeah, that little thing in your gut went.
But something inside of you is saying, oh no, you've got to drive it home. You got to make this work.
Right.
And then something blows up anyway. The customer's not happy. They ask for a refund. Someone threatens to sue. I mean, it can always, whenever you think it's a little bad, has the potential to be really bad. And we both on the podcast made the same recognition at the same time. It was like, if you think back to all of those times that you thought you absolutely had to make that deal, and then you think about it with forethought, right? If you could look backwards, hindsight being 2020, you didn't need any of it.
Right.
You didn't need it. Like God's got it. Like I'm a person of faith. I'm like, God's got it. He always provides. He always comes through. It always works out in the end. I have been 100% successful in combating every obstacle so far, and I'm 57 years old. Obviously with his help. So to me, it's like when I look at these situations or I interview people like you, I'm like, well, obviously there was an obstacle, right? But flip it on the other side and go, what's the opportunity within that obstacle? How can I help other people? How can I add value to others? It's really cool.
Yeah. And my faith is different. I mean, I do believe there's something, right? But if somebody tells me, hey, we're praying for you, that is one of the most special things that somebody could tell me. And it's funny because I have built kind of a community of my cheerleaders, right? The people who want to know what's going on. And I'm pretty sure they're going, still 10 years, really? But anytime something happens, and I've now had over 30 surgical procedures. It popped up in Facebook today that a year ago today, I was having my kidneys worked on for the 6th time. But I was never alone in doing that, right? I had whatever was watching out for me. I had my angels. Now I firmly believe that I have angels who are watching out for me. Okay. And then I also had all my friends who were sending their thoughts, their prayers, all of those. And I remember one of the times when I was in for surgery, I thought, well, I can't die. All of those people get mad. But yeah, I mean, I'm not alone. And I think that's the thing. And one of the things people tell me so much when they're on this journey is they say they've never felt so alone. And I have never felt that. I've always felt that there's something and someone and all sorts of things that are cheering for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we expand our conversation into like, what you do now, speaker, trainer, coach, consultant, you've got all these things going on. Out of those things, because I have a similar background, I'm John Maxwell certified speaker, leader, coach. I'm a corporate trainer. I used to train all the technicians how to run all the election machines for LA County. 8 million voters in LA County. That's a lot of responsibility.
That's a lot of machines. Yeah.
And then I used to teach all the technicians for Ducati, for Suzuki, all that. So I have a certain vertical in those
Mhm.
categories that I
Mhm.
just love. I mean,
Mhm.
I know that I'm in my
Uh-huh.
I know I'm in my sweet spot. I know I'm in
Mhm.
my zone.
Mhm.
Out of those categories, which one is your zone?
Hmm. I think the coaching, and and I don't even consider it really coaching. It's more just being an advisor,
Yeah.
a friend. The sad truth is we all know somebody who has cancer, right? I mean, I have two people that I'm working with right now that are my friends who, are there. But then there's also just, how can we help other people, cancer or not? I mean, I had somebody send me a note the other day, and she said, that she was getting ready to do something that was out of her comfort zone, and she was really afraid.
Yeah.
And my response to her was, "You are very strong and you will do this, but you need to give yourself the grace to be afraid and to accept everything." I said, "And whatever happens, it's okay. And it's nobody's fault and there's nothing wrong." And I think that's the thing is we put so much pressure on ourselves and we don't need to. The world won't stop if whatever it is doesn't happen or does happen.
Yeah, I that part to me is huge. When I think of coaching, for me, I drive back to kind of like these interviews, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like it's a real talent to ask the
Mhm.
right questions so they can
Mhm.
find their own answers, their
Mhm.
own path. It's not
Mhm.
like coaching is so much different than training. Training is,
Right. Mhm.
here's the process.
Mhm.
This is how we
Mhm.
do this here. Whereas coaching's more like, what is your inner truth telling
Mhm.
about this
Mhm.
today?
Mhm.
And that intimacy of working
Mhm.
one-on-one with
Mhm.
somebody or two-on-one, like
Mhm.
maybe it's a pair of
Mhm.
a CEO and a
Mhm.
CTO or something, right?
Mhm.
Um, that intimacy is something that I don't think
Mhm.
can really be replaced. That's
Right.
that's a really cool that's
Mhm.
a really cool area
Mhm.
to be in. And if you're tying that to health and
Mhm.
wellness
Mhm.
and people, please in the audience, don't be insulted, but health and wellness for cancer recovery is not the same as health and wellness
No.
for stretching and Tai Chi. It's just
Right.
fine.
Yeah, I
So
can't eat things that I used to eat.
yeah, I would think that intimacy level is
Mhm.
really high for you.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Um, Now you've already said I've gone the conventional route, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, where are you at with it seems like anymore there's constant reports and constant
Mhm.
things coming out.
Mhm.
And maybe part of me blames Bobby Kennedy, and I don't want to turn this into a political rant,
No, but it makes people think.
but when you look at like a lot of people now are saying,
Mhm.
oh, well, there's the ivermectin, the
Mhm.
fenbendazole,
Mhm. Mhm.
methylene blue, there's all
Mhm.
these things. Um, how much of the issues that you had
Mhm.
do you think are like related to the food chain and our
Mhm.
nutrition and all that?
Mhm.
Do you think it's that, or do you think it's the luck of the draw, really?
I think it's a combination. I mean, I was somewhat healthy before I started all this. I didn't exercise and now I can't exercise as much. I just don't have the stamina. But there is a lot that plays into it. And I worked for the oncologist, oh gosh, 35 years ago or so. And absolutely delightful man. And I was his office staff. Even though I now know enough that I could probably pass some medical tests. But he always said 99% of this is in your head. If you think you're going to get better, you will get better. If you think you're not going to get better, you will die. And then his philosophy was, it's kind of like that, we forget that we have to live. You still only have that certain period of time, but how are you going to go through it? And we had patients, and then 35 years ago, who would tell him, "I'm not going to do it." No. And he would say, "Are you sure?" And make sure that they had the information, and then he wished them well. And I remember that so strongly because it really was one of those where if you don't believe what you're doing is what you should be doing, then you shouldn't be doing it. I mean, if you think chemo is going to kill you, then chemo will kill you. So it's there are so many things out there, and the nice thing is, you can do a lot of combinations, right? The traditional medical field has finally figured out, hey, we need to have things like yoga and meditation and nutrition and, all of those things as part of the treatment. And so it's not really so much, this cookbook thing. It's what is going to work for you. And if not doing all of that is what you think is going to get you, then fine. That's it is back to advocating for yourself. You have to do what you think is right for you. Are there lots of things that have played into some of this? Yeah. I mean, like, one of the things I wonder is, why do we have so many people now with such severe allergies to things like glutens and peanuts and, all of those things? I was laughing with somebody the other day. I said, I grew up in the mountains of Colorado. I grew up eating dirt, right?
Yeah.
But we were healthy kids. And
you took in.
yeah, and I think that's part of why people got so sick from COVID was when we actually got exposed to something, our bodies had no idea what to do. The whole, shots things, if you're going to get them, get them. If you're not going to get them, don't get them. I mean, that's the thing. I haven't had a COVID shot in several years. I had 4. I got sicker each time. And my doctors finally said, stop.
Yeah.
And I've had COVID twice with really, no, I had a fever of 101 for a day, and then I was okay. And so, but yeah, I mean, my doctors, now they do tell me, we want you to wear a mask when you're on things like airplanes. Because those are cootie factories. And, and I do have damaged lungs. I have damaged kidneys, so they want to protect those, but, and I think that's the thing, is you have to make an educated decision for what works best for you.
Yeah. We definitely went down that path. I already gave the preview to how I felt about the medical field. So, how I felt about the vaccinations.
Right.
For me, nothing had any alignment. One group would say this, one group would say that.
Right.
I took a job that sent me to Texas in the middle of it all. And when I got to Texas, the corporate rule was you had to walk in wearing a mask and all these things. And I'd walk into these businesses and they were like, if you're going to do any business here, you better take that thing off your face.
Right.
Like, and I was like, so you guys are good here like this? And they're like, it's been like this for months. But I lived in California, and in California it was.
Oh, yes.
And it was just really, really interesting. And like I said, my mother was a nurse, and I talked to her on the phone, and she would say things to me that were, to me, were incredibly out of alignment, and I called her on it once, and I said, you were in the medical field. You worked with old people. I said, this. And then she goes, and after I asked her some pointed questions, she said, no one's ever asked me like that before, and I was like, wow. It's just a matter. So it takes us right back to coaching, consulting, training.
Right.
Having that critical thinking mind to go, what's a better question to ask?
Right.
And then we come up with better results.
Right. And it has to be the results that we came up with, right?
Yeah. Nice. I appreciate that. So let's assume that you are very much open for business. You're not going anywhere, and everything's great. I say healed. You say stage 4 could come back anytime. But
if it does, it does. But nah.
Who's the perfect person listening to this podcast that should reach out to you to be in touch?
It is someone who is a business owner or an executive who is thinking, well, I don't know. I don't have enough bandwidth to deal with this.
Yeah.
I can't tell anybody because they're going to think that I can't run my company. I could lose employees. I could lose customers, and I have nobody to talk to. And so then I become that trusted confidant to say, okay, you got a business continuity plan? Those things that we should have anyway?
Yeah.
Do you know how to delegate? Have you empowered your employees? If you went on vacation, would you be able to be gone and not have anybody call you? Well, then why not deal with, okay, you're sick and you don't want people to bother you. And it's about, they need to control the narrative. But yeah, it is, it's the people who are thinking, I don't know what to do. I am lost. and they don't know who to turn to for help.
It's good stuff. So extend that. Let's move to, first off, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. This has been great fun.
Yeah, I love not having a structured podcast. I
Mm-hmm.
love just being able to meet people, talk to them, ask them questions, and then hopefully not upset them. So thanks for coming on. I want to value the time you've offered to share with us. How would people get in touch with you best? I've come across 2 websites for you already. So where do you prefer people to go to find out the basic information about you and move to next steps?
I am all over everywhere. I mean, that's the thing. I think there's 3 Deb Kriers in the whole world. And, I have a business podcast with over 1,000 episodes. So that pops up a lot. But for this, go to tryingnottodie.live. And for, there, you will find everything there. We do have a private Facebook group, and the link is on the website. We only keep it private to keep the people who are going to cure us out, right? I only had one of those that was going to cure me with the thing that they were carrying around in their trunk. I was like, don't think so. But yeah, so tryingnottodie.live. I try and keep things light. We didn't talk a lot about humor. I have one of those wackadoodle senses of humor. And I like to make my medical team laugh, and have a good time, because they got really serious jobs. So you'll find on the website, we post inspirational, we post humor, but we also help each other. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then there's no one stealing a piece of the pie. We're just baking more pie.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and promote the name of your business podcast.
It's and you have to put that in there, thebusinesspowerhour.com. I have to set that, it's trademarked that way. And so, and it is a business podcast, right? But I try and have a lot of fun with it. I interviewed somebody a couple weeks ago who started a business that has now pitched to Walmart, and she is 6 years old. She's 10 now. But yeah, I mean, it comes back to the life's too short, right, Kurt? We got to have fun with this. And even if we're giving business topics, why can't we have fun with it?
Yeah. And I go back to, we can do anything for a short amount of time. When I used to run Spartan races, when I lost a bunch of weight, I used to have an activity every month. If I had an activity every month, then I was inspired to go to the gym and keep working out. So that was the deal.
Right.
And I would sign up for these Spartan races, and halfway through them, I'd be so angry. Deb, I'd be yelling at myself in the middle of a field somewhere, be like, "You stupid moron, this was dumb.
Doing this.
This is stupid." But then I would look and I would say, 2 years ago, I couldn't have run 10 miles in the woods, right? And I couldn't have climbed that wall, and I couldn't have climbed that rope, and I couldn't. And then I'd start to calm down a little bit, and I knew it was a mental glitch. And then I would say, you know what, I can do anything for a short amount of time. And then I think I just got to throw the spear, run the last 2 miles, jump over the fire, and I'm done. And then when I was done, it was always such a sense of accomplishment. It was always such a reward at the end. I do a lot of 100-mile bicycle rides.
Wow.
I get 1 through 50, I'm great. Like 60 through 80, I'm like, oh, my feet hurt, my legs are tired. And then when I get to 80 miles, I think, oh, I only have 20 miles to go.
Right.
But then
the goal is very attainable.
When I get to 90 miles, I want to kill myself. And then I really have to talk myself into the last 10 miles.
You can do it. You can do it. You can. You've done 90.
So close. So close. I can do anything for a short amount of time. That mentality that's gotten me through the athletics, it actually kind of transcended into my whole life. Because then I think to myself, no matter what gets thrown at me by society, I can get through it. I've already gotten through other stuff, and I can do anything for a short amount of time.
Right.
Newsflash. If you're a person of faith, then then you believe that this is a short amount of time. The whole lifespan is a short amount.
Right.
So whatever.
And you're not given anything that you can't deal with.
Exactly. So to me, it's been so good talking to you. Folks, this is Deb Krier. The links are going to be in the descriptions, right? The name of the podcast, the link to the podcast, the link to the website. Folks, if this fits you, get in touch with Deb, take the next steps, and move forward. Deb, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. This truly had been an honor and a great way to end a Friday.
It is a Friday. I'm probably going to publish this on a Tuesday.
Okay, that's all right. Great way to be on a Tuesday.
Hey, everybody.
Bye-bye.